reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call vote?
Sure.
For the roll call.
Zach Tucker.
Here.
Kurt Schultz.
Here.
Jennifer Eden. Here. Mike Cunningham.
Here.
David Walker.
Here.
Herman Ferguson.
Here.
Pam Lockwood. Here.
We do not have any additions or changes to the agenda, so I'll entertain the motion.
So moved. Support.
Been motioned and supported to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the agenda is approved. Next is approval of the consent agenda, the regular board meeting minutes from September 5, 2023, Treasurer's Report, August 31st, 2023, and number 3, Clerk's warrants and bills, September 27, 2023.
So moved. Support.
Been motioned and supported to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a communication. It's the Livingston County Sheriff's Report dated August 31st, 2023.
So moved. Support.
It's been motioned and supported to receive the Sheriff's Report placed on file. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to public remarks. If anybody would like to make any public remarks about tonight's agenda, we will also have a second public remark comment at the end of the meeting. Please do so. Come up to the front and you have 3 minutes. Anyone?
Yes. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Jeanette. I'm a Tyrone Township resident. And I'd like to address the agenda item number 3, the resolution to extend the Solar Moratorium. I'm here to strongly advocate for extending the moratorium by 1 year. I've had many conversations with residents and leaders in neighboring townships. Those who have treaded the same path, they all say it takes a long time to complete the process. So I really hope you will extend it for 1 year. Next, I'd like to emphasize how complex this issue is. I don't think any of us, including the Planning Commission, were fully aware of how complex it was when we decided to revise the Solar Ordinance. And there are 4 things I've learned through my research and the discussions that I mentioned. First, the wisdom shared by these townships is don't reinvent the wheel. In other words, we should study the ordinances and approvals from neighboring townships that have already navigated this path. That will help speed up the process and allow us to benefit by learning from others. Second, the consensus among these townships is that our approach to consultants should be very different from what we're currently doing. Instead of having them draft our ordinance, they should be used to verify that our vision aligns with our objectives. And third, and very importantly, we must recognize that this complicated issue requires a seasoned attorney with extensive experience in crafting and navigating the solar ordinances. Our township's current legal counsel may not possess this experience. There are lawyers out there who are successfully representing local townships and getting what those townships want. Fourth, and please hear this one, nowhere in all the ordinances that I've looked at have I seen demonstrated what our township is proposing. I'm talking about the solar overlay map. I hope that all of you have seen it. It spans from north to south, east to west, utilizing parcels of land that border residential areas, some on 3 sides. This is unacceptable and it deviates significantly from the approach taken by other townships. It does not align with our master plan. This is a huge amount of land being proposed for solar plant utilization. So in closing, I ask you to consider the importance of time, wisdom, and expert guidance in this matter, to be mindful of our community's best interests. And I didn't even touch on the negative aspects of solar farms. I will do that at the next Planning Commission meetings. Thank you for your attention and consideration, and I hope you extend it for a year. Thank you.
Any other comments? Being none, we'll move on to unfinished business. We have no unfinished business, so we're going to move on to new business. Item number 1 is the Township Audit presentation. We do this every year after our audit is complete. Our auditing firm is Gabbridge, and Matt Holland is here. He drove all the way out here from Grand Rapids tonight, so thank you for enduring the drive to
No problem.
give us this presentation.
Podcast, I get behind on, so. It's free to get away from the kid for a couple hours too. So.
Nice.
So first off, I'm just going to go over some highlights. If you want to interrupt at any point, feel free to. I don't know if you are going to follow along on there, or do you guys have all this in front of you?
Yep.
So if you go to page 2, it's the next page. This has the opinion that the township received. It doesn't actually explicitly say the word unmodified in there, but it's what you guys received this year. It's what you guys should expect to receive every year, but it's not guaranteed. It's the highest level of assurance we can do, so congratulations on that. Besides that, we had no funds that required a deficit.
Could you say that one more time? We just like hearing that.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, these people back here can't hear.
We can't hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Besides that, there was no deficit funds with deficits or budget deficits, so no corrective action plans needed there. So that's great that you guys are honoring that and paying attention and being fiscally sound. Next, if you go to page 8, I believe it is. This is a comparative statement of net position. So some of the biggest changes I'd point out in the current year was about $1 million increase in cash, which related to, I think, the use of the ARPA funds. You guys, the general fund had about $1 million increase, so that kind of typically ties in with that. Besides that, there were no really other major changes. The unearned revenue decreased with the use of ARPA funds and just the standard other transactions that were happening to pay down the long-term debt, capital asset activity, special assessments getting paid down. If we go to the next page, this is a comparative income statement for all funds for the year. There we saw pretty much charge services were pretty steady over the year, a little decrease I think in the sewer fund. And then operating grants and contributions did increase in the current year. Let's get into the use of those ARPA funds, brought that about. And pretty much been seeing everywhere we've seen property taxes increase ever so slightly, pretty much statewide. And then state revenue sharing, it has gone up, but it looks like it went down in the last year just due to the prior year having the census adjustment. So last year had some excess in there. Excuse me. Besides that, expenditures were pretty steady. Besides, I think there was some major road work that was done in the past year. Next, I was going to go to page 19. This is a change in fund balance for the year for all the major funds. General fund, like I said, had about $1 million increase in fund balance, which is, we've been seeing that pretty much statewide. Most townships, cities, counties have been seeing increases in fund balance just with some of the continuation of all this COVID and other grant monies coming in. Township, I think, ended with about $5.4 million in unassigned fund balance, which is roughly the prior year's expenditures in the general fund, roughly 200%. That fund balance amount is depends on what's a healthy amount, depends on what the township's vision and plans are and how fiscally responsible you are. I have some townships that almost have 6 to 7 years worth of fund balance and some that are down to 25%. So it's highly variable. As you know, doing one road can easily cost $1 million and look an eye. Fire trucks, if you have to help pay into that with your operating agreements there, also can get very expensive really quickly. So I'd say it's a healthy fund balance. You don't have anything to worry about, but it's not also, I don't think it's exaggerative for most townships. I'd say good spot to be in. Besides that, as I said, if we go all the way to page 45, that's just the budget for the year showing no overages like I said previously. So that's always great to be able to say that too, that you don't have to have corrective actions with the state. We have to have a couple of townships that we're doing that with right now. And the last 3 pages to show that we have no findings on the report and internal controls, no material audit adjustments, actually no audit adjustments. Casey has done a great job, so helping folks there. So that's all I really have to bring to you guys' attention.
Well, that's pretty good.
So say you guys are.
Is there anything that you see that we could do differently to make our audit better for next year?
I think overall, most of the controls are in good position. There's one new GASB next year. I'm sure Casey's aware and has been looking at it. GASB 96. This is like the lease standard. This time it's just with software subscriptions. I doubt the township really has any that'll be applicable to it. Besides that, there's no really new accounting things coming in there. You guys don't have pension or OPEB, which is always great that you don't have the that legacy cost that's sitting over your head. We have I just had a transit authority that they're about 40% funded, so they're going to have to work on a corrective action plan for the state. So it's always great to not have to worry about that. So keeping it simple.
Good.
Keep yourself out of trouble.
Board, do you guys have any questions?
I have one. In the universe of governmental units that you audit, where in financial condition would you see Tyrone Township? In the bottom half, the upper third? Where?
Just on purely ratio basis, I would say upper. I'm trying to segregate in my mind for townships because obviously those percentages get crazy when we start going different unit sizes. For townships, I would say you guys are in the upper quartile probably for that. Obviously, it depends on kind of how the board of the township has acted. You have some townships that, well, they don't bring in that much money, they also spend nothing every year, so they have some of those crazy fund balances because they don't spend it. One township, actually, another March 31st township we have has about 7 years with fund balance, and they don't even levy a property tax because they don't refill. So there are some of those outliers, but overall, I'd say you guys do have a healthy fund balance, but like I said, it's not 400%, it's not 600, 800% like I've seen in some other cases. So, and obviously, I'd rather be saying, yeah, you have a healthy fund balance there versus saying you have 50%. You can't spend anything on anything because one road project's going to push you into the black or the red.
So there's no other financial controls you would like to see us adopt?
We would always love to have more eyes on everything. Obviously, that gets to a point if you have enough staff to comprehensively do that. Most townships don't have that. Most cities don't have that because
Then they spend more money.
yeah, you're going to be spending another $60,000-$70,000 or more on staffing just to have controls that you do have compensating controls in place already. That we don't have segregation of duties finding or material audit adjustments, which I would say 50% plus of townships in the state have that. Those two findings are pretty common. So not having those is kind of, I can say a rarity, but it's nice to not see that on a township report.
Thank you.
Well, it seems like a long drive for such a short time.
My longest is 9 hours up to the UP for a county and a school. Well, we do that one moment now, but.
All right, Matt, well, thank you very much for driving out here and going over that with us.
Yep, thank you all for your time. If any other questions arise, Casey, you all know how to get a hold of us, and we're willing to answer any time. So,
All right,
yeah, thank you all for your time.
Moving on to item number 2, we have the request of Susan Olson to bill a fire run charge fire service. Susan, you're here. Would you please come up to the board? And could you raise your right hand and swear that you're going to tell the truth, the whole truth, the testimony that you're going to give tonight regarding your incident? All right, thank you. You can stand, you can sit, whatever is most comfortable for you. Okay, so please tell the board why you feel that you should have your fire service.
Okay, first of all, that was my brother that started that fire. I wasn't at home. He doesn't live with me. He did.
He just dropped by.
He just dropped, yeah. He did live with us when he first got out of prison, but he doesn't live with us now. And
He started cleaning some ivy off of my garage walls on the outside, and he knew that I had a little spot where I burned stuff on occasion. And there's little small fires on the sides of this table, and he went and burned that ivy there.
But he wasn't told to burn the ivy. All I wanted to do was, he wanted to earn some gas money to get back home, which he lives in,
Adrian, I think.
no, Hillsdale. And
So anyways, he had that fire going, and I guess, I presume it was down small. Both of us were
Yeah.
at work, and he was there alone, which isn't uncommon with us. You know, he's trustworthy to a degree outside of clear thinking sometimes, you know. So anyways, we got a neighbor across the street that somebody from his household phoned in about the fire. You know, it wasn't a windy day, everything was wet, it was a safe fire. The fire department came out and they made a report, and the report indicated that the conditions were okay for the fire, that there wasn't a hazard. However, there was a burning ban on because of that extreme heat. That's when it was in the mid-90s, I think. Yeah, but we didn't know about any burning ban, and of course we weren't planning on a fire. But this neighbor, it wasn't even a member of his immediate household, I don't think.
it was his sister.
They
He lives in London.
they're kind of like nitpicky, funny people, you know. There was a tree limb in that big storm 3 weeks ago. They boo-hooed about a tree limb hanging over Mabley Hill Road, the private portion of it, until the one neighbor next door got a rope on it and pulled it down, and they were quiet about it. They boo-hooed about a tree from their property that fell over to the next property, and he wanted her to help pay for his tree to be cut up. You know, I don't need to mention names, but I mean, this Scott lives across the street from us, and the other woman is next to him. And what it boils down to, in my opinion, is that there's somebody over there just has got anything better to do than gripe about something.
Yeah, and I would have brought my brother in today to see, so you all could see what an idiot he is, but we didn't, I didn't want him around me, and I was afraid he wouldn't go back home. I mean, he didn't even have a car until he got his disability check and he got back pay. He went and bought a car, went to Flint and partied all week, ran out of money, and then shows up at my house at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm the only one left in the family that would even talk to him. Everybody else is dead or just won't, you know, my sister
Won't
only had
respond
nothing
to
to
it.
do it, yeah.
You know, but he was the one who instigated the fire, not us. You know, that's
And when the fire department showed up, I talked to the fire chief, he says, and when we showed up, he came out with no clothes on. He was nude. And I go, well, he says, well, he covered up. I said, well, I'm sorry.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Pardon me?
Did you have anything else that you wanted to add before the board? I'm going to ask the board to ask you any questions. Does the board have any questions that you'd like to ask?
The fire was unattended, correct?
Well, he was down there, and I presume he figured it was near the end of the fire. You know, maybe who knows what was on his mind. When she came home, he made a couple of remarks and jumped in his car and disappeared.
Well, no, when I came home, he says, well, aren't you gonna ask me how my day was? And I go, why, what happened? And he says, well, you know, it was kind of funny, because I was down there by the fire, and this guy with a fire jacket on, and he had a fire truck, and he was asking where you were. He wanted to know where you were. And I said, well, what do you mean? And
Oh, he knew you by name?
well, I guess they know who lives there, you know. But, couldn't get a straight answer out of him.
You know, for all we know, he just ran up for a cup of coffee or something. It was, from the house, it was 100 yards away. Real green area, you know, nothing that's gonna catch on fire rapidly. But, you know, that's all we know, that he wasn't there at the moment. And then on the fire report, the firefighters, you call them, or firemen, there was the conditions on the report. Have you got a copy of that fireman's report? Well, it seems to me they called it a safe fire outside of the fact that it was unattended at the moment.
It says it's unauthorized burning, unattended burning, and no water source by the fire, which is all against our fire ordinance.
Yeah, and it also says that, it was a low,
It says dispatch for unattended open burn with grass burning near the road, a pile of wood, leaves, stump, grass clippings burning about 40 feet off the road.
yeah, I glanced at that.
Yeah, sure. It's highlighted.
Geez, I saw something different.
Don't think
Is
it's
this part of it?
Yeah,
Yes, it was.
that's name, address, location.
No, I saw something that made it sound like it wasn't
See,
outrageous.
they called, let's see. It says, initial dispatch was authorized controlled burning, and it said fire dispatch code after leaving the scene is on authorized burning. Right there.
I believe what you're referencing is the event notes, the addendum, and it says the fire has not been reported by the caller as extinguished.
Yeah, that's
The
been
fire
what-
is not threatening anything at the present.
Yeah, that's what I was
No one
talking
is
about.
trapped or in immediate danger.
That's
The fire is not spreading. No one is reported to be injured. That's what
Yeah,
you're
so
talking about.
those are positive things. Positive for me. You know, it wasn't like, you had a big roaring fire going there that the neighborhood was threatened. I mean, that's about all I have to say.
We
It's a
didn't
lot
tell him to
of
start a
money
fire.
for,
We
Why
didn't
was he
tell him to
burning?
start a fire, he took it upon himself.
Why was he burning?
I don't know. I told him to take the ivy that was on the garage that's growing up on the roof to cut it down.
yeah, so
He took it upon himself to burn it. We got lots of woods where he can dump brush.
yeah, I mean,
There's no problem there.
you know, we got acres of wild forest practically. You could have just done like we do with most of, but half of our stuff, we just put it in like a brush pile and that's it. But, you know, if it were to happen to you, you would feel it was unfair to you that you have to pay a big bill like that for something that you didn't do, and the only reason that you're responsible for it is because you're the owner of the property. You know, we work too hard for our money to be just letting it go readily. That's why we're up here appealing it.
Do we have any other questions? No? What do you guys want to do?
I know it's a raw deal that it was your residence and you didn't know it was
And then
happening.
the person that phoned it in wasn't even a neighbor. It was somebody at his house visiting her sister or I don't know, they're not an outgoing couple. They're okay people, but I mean, like I told you, they complain about this and that. Trees, little worry warts kind of. It was okay when one of their trees fell over and blocked the road. And I had to do all the cleanup because they were out of town, you know, little stuff like that. And then they turn around and
Which my
turn their
husband
backs on the
maintains
guy who
the road
does,
also.
I do half the maintenance on our private road and all that baloney, plow driveways for people in the winter. And then they denied that it came from them. I asked the surrounding neighbors who phoned that in, and they didn't know. She found out from going right to the Fenton Fire Department and speaking with the chief.
So what you guys want to do with this?
Well, as unfortunate as it is, all of those conditions that I read off that were in the fire report are against our ordinance. I know they weren't at home at the time, although it's their residence and they're responsible what happens just as we would be. And if we're not having them pay it, it's all of the residents of Tyrone Township paying that, because the bill has to be paid. What do you guys think?
Anybody else have a comment on it?
No.
So, does someone make a motion on what we want to do here?
Yeah, have a heart.
Do people always have to pay the whole bill?
Well, someone has to pay the bill.
No, but do
So-
the people that come up front, do they always have to pay the whole bill?
Well, it's.
Not
depends on
always.
Circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
Please.
but other than that.
This is a board decision, so whatever you guys want to do.
And part of our tax dollars funded towards the fire department in general. Or is it, I mean,
Yeah, we pay a special assessment for
Pay a
that.
special.
Unless there's an ordinance
They're
violation.
making a contribution to it for 27 years or something. The time we've lived out here.
No, these things are never easy, so, we have rules in place that must be followed. There's a burn ban in effect for a reason.
So can't you go after my brother?
Well, we don't care if you pay it or he pays it. That's between you guys.
It's got
It's not-
his name is on it.
Right? You're right.
So, I sent a bill to both of them.
Is it even clearly stated on there who actually would, it was made out to Joe Duman.
Right, well, he lit the fire and it was on your property, so.
Yeah, so
So you're both responsible, really.
seeking recompensation for the firefighters' standard run fee.
Which is that, $14.77, that's what that fee is.
So,
We're not making any money on it.
That's what they charged us to come out to your home, your residence.
so if you want to give me a break on it, do you want to try to nail him? Which wouldn't be easy.
I think we could send a letter that we already how we pay.
Right.
Is that
I
right?
think it's the,
Yeah.
Yeah, the need of it is at the residence. Yeah.
I'd ask them this question. If somebody, that happened to somebody else, and what you would do is all these people here would have to pay for that. If we said we erase this, then you have to look at all them. They have to pay for it. Somebody's got to pay for it. Either you pay for it or they do. So why would it be fair to them? They had nothing to do with it, and neither did you, but somebody's got to pay. I feel that you shouldn't have to pay, but if you don't, then they have to pay. Somebody's got to pay.
well, everybody has to.
Yeah. So if we say, hey, we're gonna wipe this out, you weren't home, it wasn't your fault,
So it should be the
Then I have
guy
to-
who
what's that?
started. It should be the guy who started the
well,
fire.
not necessarily if we can't, you said he doesn't have anything. If he lived in the township, then we could go after him. We can't go after him. because he has nothing. So if we don't get anything from him, then I have to face these people here out in the parking lot and say, why'd you make me pay for it? That happened before where I didn't want to do that, where we split it. And people came to me and said, why should I have to pay for it? So somebody's gonna have to pay for it. It's either you pay for it or they do. And I feel bad that you weren't even home. I don't think it's right that somebody came on your property and started the fire. I agree with you. I feel bad about that. But the worst thing about it is the rest of the residents are gonna have to kick in. So do you understand where we're at? That's why there's this, because we feel,
Temporary beef 25 cents a piece or something.
well, I know it's 25 cents, but why should they have to pay anything? They had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And then I've got to be responsible for each one of those people to say, why am I paying for something that never even happened here?
Yeah. I see what you mean.
So that's the thing that we care about you.
It's just
That's why it's a hard decision.
Because you're using subcontracted fire department because we don't have our own fire department.
Yeah.
Even then, when there's an ordinance violation, you would still get a bill. That's just how we're set up.
That's steep.
We have had an open burden ordinance for the 14 years that I've been here.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind how many times I sit here, people spilling their hearts out. It's like, we do this every year, folks. Open the damn ordinance book, read the fire ordinance, and protect yourselves. Just don't light a match. Don't pull a trigger on a gun. Know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know? And believe me, I don't like hitting you with a $1,400 bill. If somebody hit me with a $1,400 bill right now, I would not be happy either. But the fact is, there are several ordinance violations here. And it just blows my mind every year how people get up here and they cry but it's like, familiarize yourself with ordinances before you do things.
But we didn't start the fire.
But you invited him on your property.
I
You
didn't
do
invite
work.
him on my property.
He
I
said
tried
so.
to pay him to go away.
So here we are. It's ultimately it's your property. He was there. I understand that, but so now we have a tough decision to make, and that's what we're struggling with right now. So I don't know.
I move to deny the appeal. I'll support.
It's been motioned and supported to deny the appeal of Susan Olson for the fire run services. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
Sorry.
So we'll send you a letter,
Can't set up payment.
and you can set up a payment plan if you'd like.
A letter instead of what?
We'll send you a letter telling you what to do. We'll be in contact with you, and then you can also set up a payment plan.
Maybe your
All right.
brother can do
Okay, thanks for hearing us out.
Thank you.
Next is item number 3. It's a resolution to extend our solar ordinance moratorium. We enacted this with a 6-month moratorium. You have to be very careful in the timeframes that you select for moratoriums because you can be open to litigation. So we're at the point where we need to extend this because we're still working on it. We've been actively working on it, and we haven't completed it yet. So I propose to the board that we extend it another 120 days from now because we're getting close to being done with that. Or do you think that that's sufficient? Yeah.
I think that's all we can do based on the
Yeah.
resolution that we have now, is we can extend it 6 months, right?
Yeah. So that's, well, we can
Wait a
do
minute,
6 months.
120 days
It's
is
not
different
6
than
months.
6
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
But
Can we extend it to 6 months?
we can.
Do 6.
It's in the resolution, it allows us to.
We can go up
do
to-
Up to 6 months.
So
What
resolved.
we should do.
So moved.
No, I resolved. You can support it though.
Are you resolving for 6 or 120 days?
6 months.
Okay.
Support.
It's been resolved and supported to extend the moratorium for solar for 6 months. Any further discussion?
Wait, I just have a question.
Sure.
At the end of 6 months, then what happens? There's no more extending, we have to decide if somebody wanted to put a solar farm in, that they,
I don't think I understand your question.
well, what happens at the end? So we extend the moratorium for 6 months.
So what we're doing is we're extending the moratorium in order to draft an ordinance.
Okay.
So if we adopt an ordinance before that 6 months time frame is up, then we do not extend the moratorium and close it. And the ordinance is put in place. There's certain things that you just can't say no to things. And this is something you just can't say no to. So we are drafting an ordinance to protect our residents and do something that's in their best interest.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing. So, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, David Walker.
Yes.
Can we ask a question about that?
I have a question about that ordinance.
Brett, you had public comment.
What?
So you can address the board at public comment.
I can address it?
At public comment. This is board action time right now. Public comment will be at the end of our meeting.
But then you're already voting on it, so no matter what we say, it's not gonna be on.
The first public comment was for people who had questions or comments about the agenda.
Right.
So then we've closed that.
But-
Now we're conducting township business.
We didn't know that it sounds like to us that you're gonna extend it for 6 months, and then after the 6 months, it's a done deal. You're gonna do it. We were not under that assumption when we had people coming up at the beginning. So now we're stuck because we didn't know to ask these questions, because from what it sounds like back here, that you're gonna extend it for 6 months, and then after the 6 months, it's a done deal. And that's our question. Is that what you just said? Is that how we're interpreting it?
I even said that a minute ago when Herman asked me a question. Answer me the question again.
I said, what happens at the end of 6 months when the moratorium is expired
Okay, we are
in the process?
in the process of drafting an ordinance. If you don't draft an ordinance, they can come in and do whatever they want. We cannot tell them, no, you can't come in, we will get sued and we will lose violently, and the judge will allow them to do whatever they want to do. So if we are drafting an ordinance to protect our community the best that we can, and if we adopt that ordinance before the 6 month is up, the moratorium ends. If we still need more time to adopt the ordinance, then we'll extend the moratorium. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
No, hold it. We elect
Sir, you are out of order. I explained.
when do the
Sir,
taxpayers? get
please
their-
sit down. If you do not sit down, I'm going to ask you to leave. Yes, I know very well how the election process works.
We're the taxpayers. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, David Walker.
Yes.
Jennifer Eden.
Yes.
Stop. Folks, I need you to be quiet. This is not time for anybody to talk. This is not a group discussion. This is township business. We are conducting it. We need people to be quiet. It's being recorded. People can't hear when you're talking. She is recording, so please be quiet. If you cannot be quiet, you will be asked to leave. Does everybody understand? You understand?
Are we supposed to answer?
Shake your head, yes. You understand?
Okay.
Good. Moving forward.
David Walker.
Yes.
Jennifer Eden.
Yes.
Zach Tucker.
Yes.
Kurt Schultz.
Yes.
Blake Cunningham.
Yes.
Vern Ferguson.
Yes.
Dan Mochler. Yes.
So that resolution passes. The moratorium will be extended for 6 months. Next is discussion on amending the consent judgment. That's the consent judgment that Ron Smith has. He is still in the reclamation progress. Obviously, there's no mining that's going on out there. There is a project that's going on in the city of Fenton where they're bringing dirt. They actually would be bringing it down Dent Hill, down White Lake Road. Vaughn needs some dirt for his reclamation, so he asked that he would, if we would amend his consent judgment to allow him to bring that dirt in for his reclamation to get the slope on his vertical walls correct. One of the things that need to be done, and we need to have our engineer go out there and do a site survey. And part of the agreement is that Mr. Smith will give us $2,000 to pay the cost of our engineer to do it. Spoke with our attorney, says we would be crazy not to do this. Like I said, it will cut off some of that drive time of that trucks in our community by just dumping this pit. So it's only single hauler trucks, no double tandems. And he'll be done about the end of the month. And then with reclamation completed around the end of the year.
And we'll be done with that.
We'll be done with that.
That reclamation will be completed?
Yep. All gravel pit stuff will be done, and if he wants to apply for a special land use permit to do something with his property, then he has to go through the planning commission.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion.
Someone make a motion.
I do, make a motion. We extend it.
Okay. To amend the consent. Amend the consent.
So he can finish his reclamation.
Support. It's been motioned and supported to amend the consent to judgment with Vaughn Smith so he can finish his reclamation. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Is discussion on prepaying the Orchard Park drain assessment. For quite some time, there's been a flooding problem in the Orchard Park up off of Apple Orchard. There's a retention pond that the County of Genesee started sending water to that ended up flooding some houses. It was something that was done many, many years ago. It never, a certain township did not go through the drain commissioner's office before approving it, and we have big problems. So there is a special assessment district was established, and we have, yeah, it's $225,000 if we prepay it. Otherwise, it's going to be a 20-year assessment. We have the money to pay it. One of the things that got us in a little bit of trouble is we had some drain assessments in the past that people passed on, and I don't like the legacy costs at all. So,
Yeah, the interest is projected to be 4.75 to 5.75.
yeah. So I would
20 years.
Percentage?
Yeah.
Over how long?
20 years. So that's a lot of wasted money.
So moved.
Okay.
Support.
It's been motioned and supported to prepay the Orchard Park drain assessment. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Next is discussion of the fire well pump bid process. We finally got all the stuff hammered out with the residents in Alcoy Drive over there. And Walker going to give us a deed restriction permission to use, put that well at the south end of his property. And we're getting to the bid process now. Phil wanted to know if we could do a select bid process. They did one of these identical pumps in Oakland County, invite those contractors to the bid and a couple of contractors they have, or do you just want to open it up and make it a free-for-all?
I don't know what that means.
So when we did the bidding for this building, our engineer had asked if he could do a select bidding. Engineers that he's worked with, or contractors that he's worked with, contractors that he knows will do a job, sends the bid out to them. We didn't do that here, and we had some difficulties with our contractor, to say the least. So I guess it's more or less the request of the engineering firm to do a select bid process rather than a open bid process.
Will there be more than one?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, he'll put it out, and we'll find out how many he gets back.
Okay. Will you provide us with a list of those he's asked?
Yes, I'll have to do that.
In the event that there's only one that responds, can we open it up at that time?
Yeah, we can always tell them that caveat.
Okay.
But that may happen even if we open it up. The contractors, you know.
Yeah, right.
How long is it hard, the stuff that we try to do around here, how long does it usually take? Takes a long time.
Right.
So. All right, so I'll go ahead and instruct Phil to do that. I don't know if we need a motion or anything on that.
We're not spending any money, so.
Yeah.
Mike, do we have any idea how long this process will take before that's operational?
Well, depends on how long it's gonna take to install.
Yeah, I think it's all gonna
Could be a
be
year.
dependent on the contractor. Contractor might put the bid in, I might be able to start for 3 months, 6 months, a year. So it's all predicated on what the availability of the contractors are.
I just was curious whether it's going to
And
be in
material.
2024.
Oh, I would like to get it done as soon as possible, the sooner the better.
Okay.
Then we can move on to the next one. We have no miscellaneous business. Now it's time for public comment. So if anybody would like to make public comment, please come up to the front and make your comment. Yes, sir, come on up. Okay.
I didn't know the procedure, so.
Understood.
I apologize. When will you be writing this? You said within 6 months you have to write something?
So they're drafting an ordinance right now that says you can do this, this, and this with your solar projects. They're doing it at our planning commission meeting. So if you have any input or say in it, our planning commissions are the second Tuesday of the month. So next Tuesday, if you want to
October
show
10th.
up and you know, talk about it or see what's going on, they'll be able to help you out and talk to you about it.
Yeah, because I've done some research on this already. Are you familiar with the solar farm south of Las Vegas?
Very much so, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I am familiar with it. I've seen it.
Okay, it's bankrupt. You know who has to remove it? The citizens.
Yes.
All right? And my point is, if this is allowed to proceed, then why don't we have them put into their a $5 million escrow account? Because a lot of these companies go bankrupt. And I, as a citizen here, I don't have to pay for that.
No.
That's one. Number two, the EPA. We should have the EPA in here every 6 months to check soil, any birds that have died, other wildlife, because that's what they have out in Las Vegas. Wildlife dies around there. And who's going to do that cleanup? That dead wildlife goes into our water system. So all this, I hope, I'm going to be at that township meeting next week because I'm very familiar with some of these solar farms, call them whatever you want. They only last about 5 years. They break down. The soil around them becomes contaminated. There's voltage backlash into the community around that, and that goes into the houses that are in that development, right, just below that. So all this has to be taken into account. This is not a panacea. Oh, we'll put it in, we'll all get electricity. No, they break down constantly. And then who owns that anyway? Who will own that?
Oh, we won't. We won't.
Yeah.
There are private companies that do that.
Yeah, private companies. And when they go bankrupt, we're going to be held responsible to clean up all that crap. And that's why I say the panels, they break, especially if we have freezing, they contract, and cold weather destroys them. And then on top of that, if you have any type of weather that comes down, they break. So all this has to be taken into consideration. And again, if this proceeds to go on further, there should be, how many acres are involved in this?
Nobody has applied to do a solar farm. There's none coming. We're just putting an ordinance in place.
Yeah.
So so.
Yeah, many of the residents back in that, I don't know what the subdivision is called, but they're not for it. I've talked to many of them, and because I've traveled around in my former position, and there's a lot of solar farms out there in the United States, and there's a lot of bankrupt solar farms. And we have to consider that, because it's not the panacea. It doesn't work.
So your 3 minutes are up, but if you would like to, we welcome your comments at the planning commission, so if you'd like to come next Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
Is it here?
Yeah.
Okay. Any of the panel here, are they involved in that?
Yes.
You are?
There currently is a solar farm ordinance on the books right now.
We have one, we're just fixing it because it's got some holes in it.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
revising it.
All right.
So I would suggest you take a look at this stuff, because it's actually out there on our website.
Okay. Mr. Cunningham, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your time.
Yeah. Mr. Dietrich.
Scott Peter, Scott Peter. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we do that from time to time.
Anyways,
It's okay.
now if I'm correct, there will be a public hearing as well, right? After it's all decided, what your guys' plans
Yeah, I
are?
believe we have to do a public
Yes,
hearing.
I tried to
Before we
explain.
adopt it.
Yeah,
Before-
so-
yes.
So they'll be able to ask your questions after you guys
Sure.
get all put together. All right, anyways, the issue here again is 23. We just had that spill. You know, I've been up here and I'm, what are we gonna do with this out here? I mean, it's just accident after accident, you know, destruction of mine. We need the roads fixed. But, man, it just seems like can we turn around to something else? I hope the hell we didn't spill nothing. You guys probably know. Okay. It just scares me to death, you know. I know they told everybody to leave their houses and stuff. But we got some elected officials in this area, and I know it's a federal highway, it's not a state highway, right, US?
Yes.
So, where do we put pressure on these people to do something about this highway? It's costing us a lot of fire runs, and it's very inconvenient.
We build those too.
I know that. And it just seems like, I mean, it's not your guys' problem. I know you're our leaders. We ask, I just thought for guidance, who do we put pressure on? I mean, I mentioned before, we had the police here, and they redid the bridges, and the cement's falling off the bridges, right here on Center Road. I mentioned it to the police officer. I mean, they're big hunks.
Yeah, I reported that.
Yeah, I know. What I'm saying is, why the hell, when they did that, did they put it big enough to go to 3 lanes? When they spent all those millions and millions of dollars, and it just ain't one party. It's been going on for years. So let's get it. I mean, I want to get both parties. We need to get this stuff fixed. And this is so. And it's not just Tyrone. It's Heartland. It's Fenton. It's the one in Grand Lake. I mean, we're all inundated by this road. I mean, this is crazy. That road was shut down for how many hours? It was a mess. Where do we go? And we're all inconvenienced by it. We can't move. And we're living here. I mean, every road was jam-packed. And I mean, I'm not pushing the finger on you guys, but we got to find somebody that can get to all those fools up there in Washington and say, let's get these. I mean, there's definitely the traffic there. There's definitely the problem there.
You would be Time Magazine Man of the Year if you could.
Oh, I'll tell you, Mike, I'm not pointing fingers at. I'm not going all over. So, but it's very inconvenient for all of us. Thanks, guys.
Hi, Kim Freckalosi, Deer Park Court. I just want to just reiterate on the fact that having the regulation on this solar farm option is really critical. And I want to make sure that we do a bit of what he was talking about, the life cycle regulation, where it's at the construction point, what are the rules around that so we don't pollute our waterways, and then all the way, anytime there's some breakdown or they go bankrupt or even the end of the life cycle, they tend to just leave those or bury them right there in the land. So if we can get the regulation for the entire life cycle, that would be helpful. Noise pollution is an issue, as well as how it looks, which then generally degrades the value of the homes that are nearby. So it's very important where we allow this to happen and not let it go throughout our township. the habitat degradation, and these do give off electromagnetic radiation. So I don't know if there's some way we can make them put up something to keep that from going towards the homes. And then, of course, the landscaping to make sure it continues to look rural. So I just want to make sure that you guys are also sort of thinking about the entire life cycle of this, and that when we put the regulations in, we address all of those. And if we can tighten all of that up, I think then we can protect our township and keep it not Saginaw, Michigan pure, but Livingston County, Michigan pure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Anyone else? Okay.
Jeanette, from Tyrone Township. So I believe that you had every right to extend it for more than 6 months, but we're being continually told that we're supposed to be all scared about getting sued. And I've done a lot of research into the lawsuits also. There's nothing that's holding up in court with extending moratoriums or with putting up title ordinances. So just so everyone knows. In my earlier comment, I talked about the solar overlay map. And this is a draft map that appears to allow 20%, maybe more, of our township's land to possibly be developed into solar plants. Again, it is a draft right now, but the thing is that they're considering it. So please know, and if any real estate agents know about this, they have to disclose this. So if your home is in this area and you're trying to sell it, the real estate agent has to say that this is on the table. Please know that surrounding townships, those who are allowing solar into their communities, are successfully designating very small areas from very far from residential, unlike this map. So another thing I hear over and over again is about the huge money involved in this type of development, and I'm talking about who's getting stinking rich off these developments. It's not the residents. And who's suffering from the negative effects of real estate prices? That one for sure is the residents. Who's getting benefits from lower electrical costs? Not the residents. What about negative health aspects? And there are many. Caused to wildlife, domesticated animals even, definitely the residents and generations to come. Do you know about the unbearable noise? Have you guys been up to Lennon? Have you heard this?
I haven't heard it.
Haven't heard it? Okay. Herman, I'll send you a videotape of it because it is unbelievable. Pardon me? It's horrible. Now, they are going to tell you, and they do tell a lot of places when they come in for development, that it's not going to be a problem, and it ends up being a problem. Do you realize this industry hides behind the notion of being good stewards of our land? They proclaim to use resources wisely as we find out how these panels are replaced every few years and are just lying in landfills, leaching chemicals into the soils and the water, and they are not recyclable. So I'm just going to go back to my first point about the money. You always have to follow the money, right? So I'm going to ask all of you on the board and anybody listening and any other township employees or appointees to take a close look at this overlay map and ask yourself, who do I know that lives in that area? Any family, friends? Do I live in that area? Do I have a business, even an LLC that owns lands in those areas? Ask yourself, do I have any business ties with anyone in those areas? There's already people getting offers from the power companies. So when this overlay, they're looking at this and they're going right to the people now. So if your answer is yes to any of those questions, I'm calling on you to disclose that information and recuse yourself from all discussion, input, decision-making, asking of questions, and voting regarding the solar ordinance. And so please study this map closely because there's many people that are studying it also and studying to see what those connections are. Also, I call for everyone to attend the PC meeting on the 10th because we, the people, are the ones that should be deciding this ordinance,
3 minutes.
not some outside planning company and not the planning commission. It should be the people. So make sure that you come to the meeting. Thank you.
Public comment? Being none, I'll entertain the motion to adjourn. So support. The motion is supported to adjourn our meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?